Yo, what is going on, guys? This is your boy TrevCL, and today we are here for the draft analysis for Season 8 of the NPL. Now, before I get into the Mons that I picked for this season of the NPL, I want to give a little backstory about this season. Originally, I was actually not going to compete in this season of the NPL, and if you were in the fan server, you know that was announced. And on Twitter it was announced that I was leaving the NPL, and it was definitely a downtime because I'd been in the NPL since the middle of season 1. I was with Razor being gone, I would technically have been the longest active coach by far, actually, because both Chris and Jolt have also left for this season. So I would have been the longest active coach by far. The second closest in terms of even NPL experience would have been Danza, and even him, he just came back this season after missing season 7. So it would have been I probably would have been the longest active coach for quite some time, at least a couple of seasons. But I had decided to leave because I was busy with college work, and honestly, I wanted to give an opportunity to somebody else that probably deserved to be there more than me, because I felt like I had been kind of fading in draft format a little bit, and I just didn't feel like maybe I deserved the spot as much as somebody else. And then we had a couple people leave. So we had Mono leave, and that's where Danza came in. So Danza actually wasn't even going to be in this season originally either. And then finally we had Ethan drop, and that's when Joel approached me, and he felt like there wasn't anybody else he was comfortable in asking, because we want to try and promote that the minors is the way to get into the majors. We don't want to add anybody straight in the majors, and we had just added a fresh 5 minors coaches from last season, and already half the coaches about in the majors have been in the minors the past season or two. So Jolt wasn't totally comfortable with making another minors ad, especially since we already had drafted in minors, and since we had already established that we had a lot of coaches from the minors before, which isn't exactly a bad thing, but we want to give some of those guys a chance to kind of get used to the environment a little bit before we bring them up. So Joel approached me, kind of sweet talked me a little, and I can't say no to Joel, and I think he knows that. So a little, but I'm honestly okay. And my goal going into this season was 1, not to get relegated, and 2, just to have some fun. Now, I'm always going to be competitive, so I'm always going to have my league record in this league, and just overall in Gen 7, overall for my draft career. I'm always going to have that in the back of my head, no matter how much I want to kind of meme or, have some fun. But I'm going to try and dim it down more, because I just got obsessed with my record, and every time I would lose, it would get to me. Every time I won, it would boost me up. But I'm going to try to keep that at the back of my mind, and I'm going to try and just have fun with this season. But I ended up getting the 11th pick. Technically Ethan had the 11th pick, and then I subbed in for him, so I had the 11th pick. Luckily, I actually did get to draft my own team. The replacement actually happened about probably a week before the draft or so. So while that didn't really give me too much time to think about a draft plan, it still was a decent amount of time. So I had been thinking I wanted to try a couple megas. I wanted to try either Mega Kang or Mega Mawau. I also maybe wanted Lando T. Lando T was something I was thinking about. I wasn't quite as high on Lando as on Kang or Mawau, just because I had already used it a couple times, and while I do definitely like Lando, it's not something I want to use all the time. So and it just so happened that Greg ended up getting Lando T anyway, so we didn't get Lando T. Another thing was I wanted to maybe try out one of the newly allowed mons, like Aegislash, Tapu Lele, or Sheer Force Lando I. However, at 11th pick, none of them were probably making it to me, and that's just so happened to be the case as Aegis went first overall, the Gypsy. Lele went 5th or 6th, something like that, 5th, 6th, or 7th, one of those 3 numbers. And Lando I went 9th or 8th. So, like, all the options I had possibly wanted have been gone, except for Wow and Mega King, except Mega King actually went around the same time as Lele. So I was thinking, man, I'm gonna get a mon that, you know, again, I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to use a mon I had wanted to use for a while, and that was either Mega King or Wow. Mega King went to David, and I already kind of planned on him getting that because he'd said he wanted it. And so, you know, I'm thinking there's no way Mega Wow gets to me at 11th. But then, you know, Lando I went at 8th, Lando T went at 9th, and then it gets to Adam, and he actually picks up the Mega Lopunny. So we do indeed. Oh wait, let me fix this. Yep. Nope. There we go. All right, we do indeed get the Mega Mawile for 17 points. So, you know, not even the most expensive point total possible. So that's also a plus. Mega Mawile is a mon that lately in draft format has seen a lot more exposure due to the fact that people are starting to realize it's probably not as broken as we once thought it was, or it was once in Gen 6. It's definitely still a terrifying mon to prep for. I remember last season against Aster, it got like it got all 5 of the kills against me, and you know, I still won, but it got 5 kills, which is that's a pretty scary threat. And I had even prepped a decent amount for it. So, like, yeah, Mega Mawile is the thing. Even if you prep for, it's hard, definitely hard to still play around, because if it sets up an SD, then that could be game over if you don't play Sucker Punch mind games correctly. It's pretty fat, not like as fat as I thought it was. I've been doing calcs with it, and it's definitely fat if you invest in it, because you don't need to invest in max attack pretty much ever unless you just want things to die 100% of the time, usually after an SD or even without an SD. But it's not quite as fat as I thought it was, but it still is definitely a hard mon to kill. Like, it's not going to die to any unstab super effective move most of the time unless it's boosted. It's usually going to be able to live 2 hidden powers from anything bar like something with a life orb or specs that also has a pretty decently high special attack. So it's not something you can just slap hidden power on and expect to 2-hit KO. Kind of like I'm trying to think of something comparable, something that's a pretty big threat that you can just, like, well, you can think about it this way. Like the Landos, those are huge threats, and obviously Mawile and the Landos are pretty different, but you can just slap on Hidden Power Ice and 2-hit KO or Oko and Lando a lot of the time. Trying to think. Let's see. I might have an example later. I might put it in editing if I like some text about some examples of things you can just slap a Hidden Power on, and you can 2-hit KO them that can be pretty decent sized threats to your team. But Mawile is not one of those Pokemon. If you invest in it correctly, it's super fat. Now, downsides about Mawile have to be the speed and the Sucker Punch mind games. Now, if your opponent preps for Mawile, well, I would expect at least 1 or 2 sub Pokemon a game. If your opponent isn't bringing sub, either they're not scared of Mawile, or they're not prepping for it very well. Now, obviously, you know, you don't have to bring sub if you have like decent defensive checks to Mawile, or you have good offensive checks that can take a sucker. You don't necessarily need to bring sub. But on Pokemon like Victini, on Pokemon like Alakazam, you know, fast psychic types that die to sucker, you'd expect there to be a sub. So that's part of the mind games, is you're going to have to probably predict around those, which, you know, while it's not impossible to do, it's definitely not something I care for too much, but I'm hoping maybe to introduce some other elements of my team that can maybe help me around those situations, so I don't necessarily need to run sucker or click sucker to kill some of the faster Pokemon. So my next pick, alright, so obviously I have my Fairy and my Steel, so I'm looking to complete my Fairy Dragon Steel core pretty quickly here. So I kind of wanted Zygarde. I felt like there might have been a chance Zygarde could fall the second round, but I pretty much wrote it off that it wouldn't fall the second round. Like, it usually goes first round or very early second round nowadays, even sometimes like top 10 or top 5. It was just a little hope that it could have gotten to me. Had it gotten to me, that would have been superb. Mega Mawile Zygarde 50 is a pretty cool core that hopefully I'll be able to try out sometime, or somebody will be able to get. But it actually went the pick right after my Mega Mawile pick, so yeah, no Zygarde. Now, there was a couple things that I could have gotten. I could have gotten D-Knight, and I could have gotten Salamence. However, I ended up choosing Salamence, and the reason I chose Salamence over D-Knight is because while D-Knight gets a more guaranteed DD due to multi-scale and it is bulkier, I like the factor that Salamence is usually the better Scarfer. Now, obviously, you can put a Scarf on Dragonite, but with Moxie, Salamence is just the better Scarfer, I feel. I do like Salamence's move pool a little bit more. Now, obviously, Dragonite does have special flying stab. It also has stuff like Thunder, but just overall, I do like Salamence's move pool. It even gets stuff like Wish for support. I just like it. It's both a good offensive mon to go with Mawile, but it also supports Mawile really well. Defensively, like, it's immune to ground, it resists fire, and Mawile does resist the ice and the fairy that Salamence is weak to. So I do think they pair really well together defensively and offensively. So that's why I picked up Mence over D-Knight. D-Knight, again, wouldn't have been a bad pick, but I definitely preferred Salamence here in this situation. But next, I was already thinking about it, and this next mon I grab is a mon that people are either really high on or really low on. Like, they'll either grab it first or second round, or sometimes it won't go until the 4th or 5th round. It just depends on what their ideologies are when it comes to draft format. But I ended up picking my good pal Reuniclus. Now, Reuniclus I picked up 3rd round for a couple reasons. One, only 13 points. I grab a bulky Pokemon, which, while Salamence with Intimidate and Roost is a bulky Pokemon, I wanted even more fat. So at 13 points, having Reuniclus is really good. Reuniclus is arguably the best bulky Psychic type in the format, with stuff like Recover, Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Magic Guard, Regenerator. So, like, it's got good abilities, it's got a good move pool. It's annoying to kill. It can be a sweeper, it can be a defensive wall. It can do a lot of things. And it did give me the Trick Room option. Again, going back to what I said about Mawile, I wanted some other options so I don't necessarily have to click Trick Room all the time. And that is what, Sucker Punch all the time. And that is what Reuniclus gives me. It gives me, first of all, a Trick Room mon that doesn't necessarily can't use Trick Room itself. Like Cress is a good Trick Room user, but it can't necessarily destroy teams by itself, whereas Reuniclus, on the other hand, can. Reuniclus is very good at sweeping teams, as you've seen from, if you've ever watched my NPL Season 4 playoff run. Reuniclus kind of did some work there, especially in the championship game. And honestly, I wanted to kind of give a little throwback to that, because I did draft it in Season 6 as well, but I kind of traded it shortly after. I don't plan on trading it this time. I wanted to kind of go back to the old days of Reuniclus back in Season 4, because it definitely was one of my favorite mons that season, not just in the playoffs, but also during the regular season. I ran some Infestation Toxic sets, and who knows, those could come back, possibly. We'll see, depending on matchups, but Reuniclus is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon in draft format to use, and I'm really excited to use it this next season. So, looking at my team, obviously you can see I have a base 50 Pokemon in Mawile, base 50 speed, a base 30 speed Pokemon in Reuniclus, and a base 100 in Salamence. So, I definitely want a little bit more speed for sure. And right now, while Salamence can go special, it prefers the physical set, and Mawile definitely is 100% physical. So I wanted to balance out my team offensively a little bit, and I also really like this next Pokemon. I've been using it a decent amount lately in League, and it's a little bit of a polarizing Pokemon. It's not a Pokemon you can bring to every matchup most of the time, but it is a Pokemon, when it has a good matchup, it's going to thrive, and that Pokemon is Keldeo. Now, again, Keldeo at 14 points, not too bad of a pick at all, and in round 4 as well. I actually did snipe Greg of this. He wanted Keldeo, but I grabbed it a couple picks right before him. Now, Keldeo is definitely a great Pokemon. It's like I said, it's not a Pokemon you can bring every single week. IMO. I mean, there are people, you can bring it every single week. If you have the team support around it, you can probably bring it every single week. I personally care to bring it about half the games, maybe a little bit more. Like in GPC, I brought it 6 out of 10 games, and it did some really good work for me. It was actually my kill leader, even though I brought it those 6 out of 10 games. Like I said, I think it's a mon that thrives in some matchups, and in some matchups you just really can't bring it. Now, I don't know how that's going to compare to this season of NPL, because obviously NPL is a whole different monster than GPC, but we'll have to see. Keldeo does give me 108 speed, which is a better top speed than 100, obviously. Still not super fast for my top speed, but definitely not not nearly as slow as I was before. It obviously gives me another good Choice Scarf user, a good Specs user. It can run Sub CM, it can run Taunt, maybe even the legendary SD set could be making an appearance depending on matchups. But yeah, this Keldeo I felt really fit my team. Plus, I kind of want to go for a type of offense I've never gone for before, not that I can remember. So you'll see that in a couple picks. But yep, that's pretty much why I picked Keldeo. And then next, I really wanted a rocker, another rocker. Now, obviously, Mawile gets rocks, but I don't want to have to rely on Mawile to be my rocker. Obviously, because I want to be able to run SD, I want to be able to run 4 attacks, maybe sub punch, something like that. And if I have to run rocks, that just takes a coverage move, that takes away SD, that might take away sucker punch. So I really don't want Mawile to be a rocker. And I also love T-Spikes. If I don't draft a team with T-Spikes, then honestly, I just don't think I do as well. I think I always need a T-Spiker if I want to do well in League. T-Spikes probably is honestly my favorite hazard in the format, even more so than rocks. And honestly, it still surprised me that this Pokemon fell this late in the draft, but I am actually going to be able to pick up Nidoqueen. So Nidoqueen does a couple things for me. Obviously, so far on my team, I didn't have an electric resist, and I did have one electric weakness, so Nidoqueen solves that. 2, it's a grounded poison, so I don't lose to T-Spikes myself. Not that I was super weak to poison T-Spikes, considering Mawile's immune, Rainiclus can have Magic Guard, and Salamence is also immune to T-Spikes, but obviously my entire team's not going to be able to beat T-Spikes. I'm just not going to be able to draft a majority of mons being either in the air or a steel type. So eventually, I was going to have to draft something to take care of said T-Spikes, but Nidoqueen solves the rocks problem. Nidoqueen is I would argue, is at least top 3 reliable rockers in the format, if not maybe the best reliable rocker in the format. There's not too many things that have the combination of power, bulk, and even just not super fast at base. I believe 76 is what its speed at, but it's not terribly slow. It's not like a Hippo or a Ferrothorn or a Fortress, one of those rockers. It does have more speed than the usual fat rocker does. And again, Nidoqueen is one of the Pokemon I love in draft format. At first, I don't think I even drafted a Nidoqueen in the first year and a half I played draft format, or even more, maybe even 2 years now that I think about it. But I think in the last year, I've either drafted it or picked it up 5 times across different leagues. So it's definitely been one of my favorite Pokemon to use lately. And while I haven't really used it probably to the full capabilities of, Nidoqueen can be a pretty good killer when it comes to kills. It can be something that doesn't ever die. However, I still like the ability for rocks, T-spikes, and just the coverage, the sheer coverage. It can also go physical or special because of sheer force, and its coverage is just crazy what this thing can do. It even gets taunt, stuff like that. And looking at my team now, the last 2 Pokemon, or even Mawile as well, have taunt, so definitely not going to lose to any fat teams with a Mawile, a Z-Ments. Oh, by the way, Ments, I made my Z-Mover, Reuniclus, a Keldeo, and a Nidoqueen. So 3 Taunters. Another thing that can possibly abuse Trick Room. It's slow enough to abuse Trick Room, but also fast enough to outpace some of the fatter teams. Like, it outpaces a lot of wall cores, which is really cool. But, enough about Nidoqueen. I've rambled on enough about it. Nextmon is going to be part of the core that I really don't think I've ever tried before, that I mentioned with Keldeo, and that is a dual fighting core. Now, obviously, I have my water. I don't have a fire yet, but I want a grass. And also something I need is priority, because right now my priority is Sucker Punch Mawile and Sucker Punch Nidoqueen, which Sucker Punch Mawile is pretty good, but Sucker Punch Nidoqueen is kind of meh. It's really there for, like, if you're going up against a Lottie and you have the move slot for it. So I definitely wanted some more priority in the team. I wanted a grass type that didn't lose the Zygarde, and I wanted to still patch up some more speed. Obviously, this Nextmon, once you see it, you're not going to think, oh, this thing's fast, but it does patch up a little bit more of the speed between Mawile and Nidoqueen, because it's not just the speed tiers at the top you need to worry about, it's also the speed tiers in the middle, or even kind of lower in the 50, 60, 70 range. So I picked up Breloom. Breloom at 11 points I think is a steal, and honestly, I partly picked this for fun, just because of the Reuniclus and Breloom history, and now I have them both on the same team. I kind of did it just for that, but at the same time, I think Breloom really fit my team. It's yet another setup sweeper, probably, arguably, maybe the scariest one on my team. Z-Ments is definitely a scary one, but SD Breloom, man, just hits so hard with Bullet Seeds. It's got priority, Technician, Mach Punch. It's got coverage for flying types and rock tomb. The only problem is it does have trouble beating bulky grasses, especially the grass poison types in particular. But I definitely think Breloom fits my team. It also has Spore, so it gives, like, all of my setup options even more time to set up or neutralize a threat. It's not a bad Scarfer. It's a pretty good Sash Pokemon as well to run. But yeah, I definitely like Breloom. It can fill surprisingly a lot of roles. It's got priority. It's a bulky grass. Well, not bulky grass, but it's a grass type that can take on Zygarde. It's got utility in Spore and the Toxic Orb, Poison Heal, Leech Seed set, which is pretty gross. Sub Punch. It's got a lot of utility for sure. It's not as simple as Amon as a lot of people make it out to be, so I'm excited to try it out. I haven't had Breloom since, like, NPL Season 1, when I didn't even get to draft my team, so it's definitely been a while. Basically, a Pokemon I've never drafted before, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. So next, again, you may be looking and you're like, okay, you have a Keldeo, you have a Ments, but you still don't have that much speed, alright? And also, while you do have, rocks, you have T-spikes, you don't really have as much utility on your team. You're more offense looking. You don't have something that can just be that annoying Pokemon that's, maybe not as hard as Reuniclus to kill, but it doesn't, I don't really have a Mon that's just there to be annoying and support the rest of the team. And so I decided to pick up a Alolan Persian. Now, Alolan Persian for 8 points does 2 things. One, it actually allows me to go for Z Persian plus Z-Ments. Oh, by the way, also it gives me more, It gives me more momentum. That's what I was mainly missing, because right now I only have SD Mawile for my momentum. Or not SD, Baton Pass Mawile for my momentum. So, it gives me momentum with Parting Shot plus U-Turn. It gives me the ability to make it my Z-Mover for Z Parting Shot, because in NPL we actually had 24 points exactly for Z-Mons, and you know, Alolan Persian plus Ments actually work out perfectly. And with my, you see my scary ass team right here, that setup wise, you know, my first 4 Pokemon and 5 out of my first 6 are dangerous possible setup sweepers. Keldeo is more of a wall breaker or a scarfer, with the specs in the scarf set, but you know, it still can run a calm mindset. So you see like all these scary setup mons, and being able to Z Parting Shot into them not only give them a free setup more free setup opportunity with the drops, but also to heal them back. So something like Ments can come in twice in the game, set up a DD, and possibly clean. So if it doesn't do it the first time, I can Z Parting Shot into the Persian, bring it back. Maybe I brought Mawile to check a fairy type and it's getting weakened, so I can Z Parting Shot, bring back all the damage that was done to my Mawile, and boom, Mawile's back. Maybe Nidoqueen, maybe the person's Defogger died, but they were able to get my rocks away and my T-Spikes. Maybe I can Z Parting Shot, bring that all the way back, and all of a sudden my rocker, my T-Spiker, my hazard setter is just back right there and able to put up those hazards for the rest of the game. So Persian does a lot of things. It's also really annoying. It's base 115, it's got Fur Coat, it's hard to kill, it's got Fake Out, it's got, you know, obviously Parting Shot, Knock Off, U-Turn, Foul Play. So Fur Coat plus Foul Play is definitely a very good combo, as you're able to eat up physical hits pretty well even without investment. This thing can absolutely tank hits, and then you can Foul Play and do major damage if they've set up an SD or any sort of attack boosting move. So Persian's definitely a super annoying mon on this team, and honestly I gained the love of Alolan Persian from mocking Adam last season in Minors, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Persian. I was like, this mon kind of looks crappy, but then Adam, the Bee's Knees, really opened my eyes to it in mocks last season, and I decided that I wanted to at least try out and see how it does. So, looking at my team, you may be looking and seeing, well, alright, you do have Nidoqueen as a rocker, and you do have Mawile, but is one rocker outside of Mawile really enough to make sure that you never have to run rocks on Mawile? And I agree, I really do need to probably pick something other than Nidoqueen, because while Nidoqueen is one of the most reliable rockers, I don't necessarily want to have to bring Nidoqueen every game that I want rocks, and I don't have to want to bring Mawile with rocks every time I don't bring Nidoqueen. And I don't want to be able to just not bring rocks one game because I don't want to run Mawile and rocks on Mawile and I can't bring Queen. So I did decide to pick up another rocker and also another ground type, because something that I had also noticed lately in draft format is that double ground is actually a pretty nice core, not gonna lie. And so I picked up Piloswine. Now Piloswine I feel is a steal. You know, I used it in TVU, I really loved it. This thing can take like 4 Earthquakes from a non-boosted Mamoswine. So like if you're Scarf Mamoswine, good luck killing a Fizz Def Pilo. Super fat. Actually decently strong with base 100 attack and stuff like Earthquake and Ice Crash. It also has more priority for Ice Shard. It is a rocker, very reliable rocker. And the good thing between Pilo and Nidoqueen is they only share one weakness, and that is water. Unless I'm forgetting some weakness, which I don't believe I am. Pilo even resists the ice that Nidoqueen is weak to with the thick fat. You know, Nidoqueen can eat up the CCs and the Focus Blast that are aimed for Pilo. They're both well, Nidoqueen doesn't resist the grass, but it does have that offensive poison coverage and Sludge Wave plus Sheer Force to deal away with any grass types that are threatening Pilo. And you know, Pilo is obviously thick enough to take on an Earthquake from any ground type that you can think of. So Pilo is definitely a really nice mon. Again, my team isn't super fast, so maybe I could use some more speed. But honestly, I've always been pretty comfortable with having my fastest mon be like in the 110, 115 range, and not necessarily having much in that range, having a more slower team. But to fix that, alright, obviously I've got a Trick Rumor and Reuniclus that can help out stuff like Pilo, Mawile, Nidoqueen, some of the slower stuff, especially the Mawile. But I do need some more speed control. You know, I do have Tailwind Ments as a possibility as well, but I wanted more stuff for Dragons because look at all the things I have for Dragons. Defensively, I have Mawile, and offensively, I have Piloswine. Although Pilo can also check it defensively, even though it doesn't resist any of those. But I wanted a better fairy in terms of defensively checking things. This fairy also gets Wish, and it does help with the speed control, and that fairy is Slurpuff. So Slurpuff's 9 points. But Slurpuff is not just something that gets Wish. It's not just a fairy type. It doesn't just get Sticky Webs. It is also another setup threat on my team, which again, with Belly Drum or Calm Mind and Unburden, this thing can be an absolute menace, especially again with the Parting Shot, whether it's normal Parting Shot or Z Parting Shot from the Persian, that can just give a free setup opportunity to Slurpuff. And honestly, Slurpuff could be the most dangerous setup sweeper on this team. Belly Drum Slurpuff is surprisingly terrifying. I've looked at some matchups, and this thing does destroy teams. And I've had Slurpuff in the past in NPL Season 2, and it wasn't... I didn't use it all the time, but it definitely was a super scary Pokemon that you have to prep for, either because of Sticky Web or because of Belly Drum. And heck, if you don't even need like Return or Drain Punch, you can actually just run Belly Drum plus Sticky Web. So you can either sweep them, you can get up the webs for utility, or you can do both and just absolutely outspeed everything that's on the ground. So definitely an amazing Pokemon. With the Sticky Web introduction in Ultra Sun and Moon, it did just get so much better because you have to prep for Sticky Web and you have to prep for Belly Drum. If you don't prep for both, then you're gonna probably be screwed. This thing is super scary. So looking forward to hopefully bringing it a couple times this season and hopefully catching some opponents off guard. But next, I obviously only have 13 points left. I don't have my fire yet. I also don't have a spin blocker, which isn't exactly something I consider necessary, but as you can see, I'm also got one normal resist, and I wanted another Trick Room on. I wanted something that's also a big threat, so I got Chandelure. Now with the Chandelure, I hadn't picked up a special threat since Nidoqueen, and even then, on my team I had like a lot of physical stuff like Mence, Mawile, Breloom, Piloswine. Even Slurpuff was more of a physical threat than a special. So again, I do this to kind of balance out the team. And for 10 points, I got Chandelure, so it's a ghost type, obviously. So, you know, I don't have one normal resist anymore. It's a fire type, which completes the Fire, Water, Grass core. It has Trick Room. It's a great Scarfer, unbelievable Spectre as well. Better Scarfer than Spexmon, but still, it does both very well. And yeah, it's just a really big threat. So my team is kind of just full of threats. It's not obviously the most defensive team because, like, technically my stuff that are walls are Piloswine and Renaclus, which aren't necessarily usually referred to as walls. They're usually just more fat than actual walls, but you know, they still function pretty well, and I do have the possibility of Wish Mence or Wish Slurpuff to hopefully heal them up. So it's not like a totally lost cause when it comes to switching into things, but yeah, for sure. Chandelure was definitely something I had been looking forward, like the last, probably since round 8, I was hoping it would get to me, so I do pick that up. Now, obviously, I have 3 points left, so I have to make a decision. Do I want to get one 3-point Mon, or a 2-point Mon and a 1-point Mon, or even just like 2 1-point Mons? So I actually was looking at it. I don't have an electric type. I also have a pretty decent speed gap from Nidoqueen to, from Chandelure to Mence. So I want to patch that up a little bit. I also want to, you know me, I love, looking at this team, you can tell I love threats. And so what better electric type that hits that speed gap between 80 and 100 than Pokemon's mascot, him or herself, Pikachu. Now, Pikachu, I don't believe had been drafted in NPL before this season of Minors. So it got picked up for the very first time in an NPL season in both Minors and Majors, I believe. And Pikachu is honestly underrated. This mon should not be a 1-point mon. I've been looking at it with Light Ball. This thing is ridiculous. It's got basically when you invest max attack into it, Adamant, you're hitting harder than you're hitting base 160 attack. Theoretically, when you invest into it special attack, Modest, you're basically hitting as hard as an Aegislash. It's basically base 149 special attack if you're Modest. 90 speed is not great, but it's not bad. It also has stuff like what was it, I think E-Speed, which obviously you have to run the static set, but still E-Speed from an Adamant Light Ball Pikachu or even Jolly Light Ball Pikachu is going to do a ton. And it's definitely an underrated Pokemon for sure. People crap on it. People think it's shit, but it shouldn't be 1 point. And my goal this season is to prove why it shouldn't be 1 point. Whether that means it's a big threat in a match or it gets a kill or two. So anything to prove that it should definitely be more than 1 point. Now, obviously, you look at my team. I have 2 points left. I have one possible Mon to pick left because we actually were supposed to draft anywhere from 9 to 12 Pokemon. So instead of the normal 11 max we had in NPL, we actually upped it from 8 to 11 to 9 to 12. So I do have 2 points left. And honestly, I was looking at it, and while Mence can use stuff like Z-Fly, Mence still doesn't have the best of Flying Stab. I also want a secondary Dark type. I also want a Mon that's annoying, but can also kind of be a threat in some matchups because some people actually don't draft that well of Flying Resists. So I actually picked up my good pal Mr. Murkrow, and honestly, Murkrow is like Pikachu is a bigger threat than people think it is, and it's not just the mean look Parashon set. It's not just even the Calm Mind set. This Pokemon is super spooky. Prankster is annoying with Thunder Wave. Honestly, there's even a new set now that gets cursed, like Curse Rest Talk, because now you get priority moves on that final move that you want to do. With a Violite, it can actually be surprisingly bulky. Not anything to write home about, and not anything close to a wall, but priority Roost on an Violite Mon is definitely pretty good. It does get Pursuit, which gives me a Pursuit Trapper possibly. Priority Defog, which one thing you can look at this team is that I do only have 2 forms of Hazard Removal, and they're both Defog, which is a little on the sad side, but I'm not too worried about that because my team isn't super weak to hazards. T-Spikes, I have a Nidoqueen. For Spikes, that is a little bit more annoying, but I still have Mence and Reuniclus that are possibly immune to it, and the Murkrow. And as for Rocks, I only have 2 Rocks weaknesses, and I do have quite a bit of Rocks resistances, so not 2, or I guess technically 3 Rock weaknesses with the Murkrow. So I'm not too concerned about hazards. However, maybe in free agency I can pick up a better hazard remover if need be, if I'm just straight up losing the hazards. But I'm not too concerned about hazards. I don't think that's what's going to cause me to win or lose a game, or lose a game that I should win, so to speak. So I'm not too concerned about that. But if it does come an issue, there are plenty of decent hazard removers on the draft board still. So again, not too concerned. But I really like my team. Honestly, on paper, it kind of looks like a weird team. It doesn't really look like it meshes well. I have no defensive backbone, so to speak, because usually people have stuff like Hippo, Jellicent. I'm trying to think of some good defensive mons. They have notable defensive mons. At least one notable mon that is known for being a defensive wall. And while Reuniclus gets pretty close, Reuniclus is just known more for being a fat Pokemon. Rather than a wall. But so I don't have a Toxapex, I don't have a Blissey, stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about. More of a wall, but because my quote unquote walls are just as much threatening offensively, more so than they are defensively. So it'll be interesting. Again, don't have the greatest switch-ins to things, but I mean, look at all these threats I have: Mawile, Salamence, Reuniclus, Keldeo, Slurpuff, Braylon, even stuff like the Nidoqueen, and the Chandelure. Like, my team hits hard. It's not super fast, but I do have good speed control. I have 2 Tailwind options, including priority Tailwind on Murkrow. I have decent speed tiers in terms of, while my max speed tier isn't too fast, you know, from anywhere from 70 to 100, I have pretty good speed tiers, or 70 to 108, I have the speed tiers pretty locked down right there. I do have a bit of a gap from 50 to 70, but I don't know if that's like too concerning. I do have the Trick Room option as well, so I have Tailwind, I have Sticky Web, I have Trick Room, so speed isn't really too much of an option. You have to prep for 3 different forms of speed control. You have to bring a hazard removal for the possible Sticky Web. You have to play around Trick Room, and you have to play around with Tailwind. So definitely, I definitely like my team. It might be a little challenging, just because stuff like Mawile is more of a mind game Pokemon, for sure. But I am really looking forward to using my team. It looks fun, and hopefully it'll be just as fun to play and prep with as it looks. So sorry guys for going on a little bit long. I did ramble for a long time, a decent time before the draft analysis itself, for about 7 minutes, but hopefully you guys stuck around and enjoyed. Make sure that if you did, you leave a like. It always means a lot to me to see how many likes and comments I get, because those types of things do matter to me. And even though I won't always be able to comment back because I'm busy, or sometimes I just like forget about leaving comments back, always know that I read your comments and I definitely like them, and I definitely like the support. Also, make sure you subscribe if you want to keep up with this NPL season, or even the PPL, as well as I'm not doing too hot in that right now, but hoping to turn it back next week, and looking to go better over there as well. Hopefully we can have a decent NPL season and a good PPL season, but we'll see. It all comes down to stuff like RNG, which usually favors me, but who knows. I have had a couple NPL seasons that the RNG has been against me, which is totally fair because it's season 4. It also comes down to how I prep and play, some matchups. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's not just my level as a player or my opponent's level of the player. There's a lot of factors that go into how well or poorly a season can go, but hopefully it is going to be in the positives. But we'll have to see how that goes. But week 1 we play Ace. That game should actually go up, or that battle video should actually go up in a couple days. I believe this upcoming Sunday, so hopefully you're on the lookout for that. Like I said, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to keep up with stuff. But this has been your boy TrevCL, and I am signing out. Peace, guys.